to another television.
You're happy with your lot, right. I'll now ask Dieter Leischer, which is next to you. Dieter?
Yeah.
You have worked for the public sector, but you've swapped. Now, why?
Well, of course, it's a little adventure to change sides, but private channels are developing new programs, and for me as a journalist, this is a very interesting job to develop new things, and we can develop other programs in the commercial channels, and that's the reason why I changed, besides earning much higher salary.
Well, that was very honest of you too. Peter and Dieter represent both public and commercial telly in Germany. Joining them now are three German viewers who represent no one but themselves: Susanne Lieblich, Cornelia Rietzler, and Carsten Schaefer. Thanks for joining us. We'll have lots of calls for you in a moment. Let's see what calls have come in since last night.
Yes, Mavis, the calls are coming in thick and fast here, so let's get through a few. Mrs. Joy Myers from Cheadleshugham's phoned in. She actually comes from America, and she's experienced satellite television. She says she thinks satellite TV is a very good idea because there should be more opportunities for a wider scope of programs, and satellite can provide this. Even regional programs in certain parts of the state, she says. Hello, Mrs. Dimmock from Epping, who's phoned in to say that people are worried about the quality of programs dropping, but Mrs. Dimmock says the quality isn't exactly high at the moment, is it? A query here from David Bufton from Cambridge, and he wants to know whether there is any sort of control to prevent children from watching unsuitable programs on satellite TV. Apparently, David, there is a parental lock system which can block out either a whole channel or indeed individual programs available if you punch in a certain code on that, so that's there. Some reactions to what's available already. Sky and Super Channel are utter rubbish, says Charles Paulin from Sittingbourne, but a guy called Graham Fairbass from Southminster has phoned in to disagree because he has a satellite dish and he loves the programs that he gets. Oliver Hydes from Aberystwyth wants to know if with more stations there has been more jobs created in German television, and that he actually hopes that more jobs will be created here when we have more channels. I think actually, Oliver, that goes without saying. And just think of this. A telephone directory the size of the Radio Times. Well, that's what's envisaged by Dorothy Hinchcliffe from Appleby, and she foresees that with all the satellite stations that will become available. And Dorothy, later in the week, we will be giving you an address where you can get all the satellite listings that are available at the minute. Lily Norris has phoned in from Redditch, and she says that she thinks satellite television is a good idea as it will encourage an exchange of cultures and opinions. Thanks, Lily, for that. And before I go any further, actually, I've got to ask you a question, and that is, after hearing all this, after watching all the programs about it and reading about it in the press, would you now actually go out and buy a satellite dish? Well, that's the question we'll be posing all this week. We said it last night on our programme, and we have got a poll vote, a phone poll, to take your calls. A lot of you have already rung in with that. 1,728 of you have phoned in to say that you would buy a dish, but 5,034 have said that they wouldn't. So there's a big no vote there. But what is your view? If you think that you will buy or rent a dish, give us a ring on this number. It's 0898 991181. If you think that you have absolutely no chance of buying a dish, 0898 991182. Now, those lines are open 24 hours a day. For the rest of the week, a call from anywhere in the UK will only cost you 5 pence, and we'd love to hear from you. We will give you an update on that poll on tomorrow night's programme, and I'll be repeating those numbers towards the end of the programme tonight. Now, on tonight's programme, we are looking at the satellite revolution as it affects Germany. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk to people from France to see what's happening there. On Thursday night, what has gone on in Italy. Have you got any questions you would like to put to people from those countries? Give us a ring on our normal number, 061 if you're outside Manchester, 814-0424 is the number to ring. We'll round off this series of programmes on Friday with the debate with a lot of big chiefs from television stations here who will be involved in what's to come. Here's Mavis again.
I've got a bone to pick with Eamon later on for his pronunciation of a Welsh place called Aberystwyth. German TV has faced a dramatic change in the 80s. The old public service channels are still tightly regulated by regional government, financed by a licence fee similar to our own, £64 a year. But unlike here, these services earn extra money by running advertisements. In Germany, television advertising is more restricted than in Britain, especially for public service channels. Now their monopoly has been broken by the arrival of a number of commercial companies, of which two have emerged as the main rivals, Sat.1 and RTL+. We asked our German reporter Stefan Aust for a guide to what's happening now in the battle for viewers.
Hamburg has its place in German television history. Public service television began here in 1952.
In Hamburg wurde in einem Hochbunker die Fernsehanlage des Nordwestdeutschen Rundfunks zum ersten Mal...
For over 30 years, German viewers had a choice of 3 state channels. That monopoly ended in 1985, when political pressure led to the first commercial station, Sat.1, backed by the Springer Publishing House. Today, viewers in Hamburg can watch up to 18 channels. And although only 1 in 3 Germans can receive these new channels, the main commercial rivals, Sat.1 and RTL+, are threatening the public channels.
Our motto is, das Erste muss das Erste bleiben, which means the first has to remain the first. Why? If we do not remain #1 channel in Germany, politicians who decide about our fees will probably not give us the higher fees because they say they are not so important anyway. And second, of course, we earn what we earn in advertisement on Channel 1. So probably what we earn would be reduced as soon as we do not remain #1 channel. So that is the basic philosophy why we have to remain as public television #1 channel.
The war between commercial and public television broke out in May this year. It was a battle over Germany's favorite sport, football. RTL paid more than £40 million for the rights to screen the game, a price public television couldn't compete with. But what of the future? Manfred Lahnstein of the Bertelsmann Publishing House, a major shareholder in RTL+.
On the whole, I think we can be a trifle more aggressive than the public stations. In Germany, unfortunately, the public stations are not free from political influence. We want to keep our station completely free from political influence. So we can be a little bit more aggressive in information and evaluation of information. We will be more flexible while introducing new types of programs, erotics, for instance. We can attack new problems quicker than stations which are 10 times as big as we are now and burdened with heavy bureaucracies, which I hope we will never have.
RTL Plus and Sat.1 have yet to make a profit, but their audiences are growing. Many programs are bought in, films and serials, but they have also introduced breakfast television and lengthened the program day. Public broadcasters remain skeptical.
The effect, I think, will be a 24-hour program on 2 channels that is totally devoid of relevancy, news, enlightenment. It'll offer the cheapest of entertainment at all hours of the day, and the effects are obvious. People will get addicted. People will kill time. Television becomes a time-killing device. And that's not what television was invented for, I think.
Now then, back to Germany, and is that a fair comment on how your system works? Suzanne, you're a loyal public service television person, aren't you? Are you worried about the influence of commercial television?
Yes, I am. I feel that commercial values and broadcasting values are 2 different things, and I think that being caught in the sort of rating rat race will not improve quality.
But is it not true that the public service television was a little bit staid, rather a bit dull, a bit old-fashioned?
Oh, old-fashioned. The quality of German public television is not as good as British. But I don't think that staidness is the problem.
Thank you. Cornelia, You're younger. Now, did you feel that public television wasn't for your age group?
Well, I think that it depends just how you feel like you can... Well, I don't think that it's not good for me or for people in my generation.
Mm-hmm. Do you welcome, then, commercial television?
Yeah, of course, too.
Yes?
I don't... I mean...
Yes. Carsten, do you think competition is healthy?
Well, I think so, yes, absolutely. In my opinion, public television has improved with the competition of private television. And so I think, well, competition is really healthy because you haven't got a monopoly anymore, but you have to compete with others. And that will, or has to, improve competition, or quality, rather.
Mm-hmm. Your English is brilliant. We'll be back to you shortly. So is there a difference between what the channels have to offer? You decide. Here's a glimpse of public service television in Germany.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Franz Josef Strauß... Wissen Sie, was sich in diesen Koffern befindet? Öffnen Sie sie. Dann sehen wir es. Hübsch.
Oh, wow. Wo bist du? Ja.
So ist es, wenn du experimentierst.
Ja, ist ein bisschen was daneben gegangen, aber bei dir fehlt auch einiges.
Eine große Zahl von Nutz-, Kultur- und Wildpflanzen sind auf die Bestäubung durch Insekten angewiesen. Der Honigbiene kommt dabei geradezu eine Schlüsselrolle zu. Denn 80% der bestäubenden Insekten in Wald und Feld gehören zur Gattung der Fleißigen.
So rüttelig ist es da, so schwarz, man haltet es und wenn es Wind ist, dann geht es halt nicht.
Jetzt bin ich gespannt. Staubsauger. Der Hausmann.
So that's the licensed fee channels. Let's have a look at what's on offer from their commercial rivals.
Guten Abend, liebe Zuschauer. Hier noch einmal die wichtigsten Meldungen dieses Tages.
Ja, ich versuche mit dem, was ich hier mache, meinen Lebensunterhalt zu bestreiten. Und mir ist es völlig egal, ob Sie darüber lachen oder nicht. Das soll ich nur mal gesagt haben. So, Feuer frei.
Super Sexy, a late evening program on the leading commercial channel TF1, was created by Pascal Brugno.
We never speak about perversions. You know, sex is a part of the personality. You know, it's a very important thing in life, sex. If we shock the public, he does not come. If we are just in advance, he is a little shocked, and for the first 2 or 3 months, and after he comes and likes the show.
When the 5th channel, La 5, went further and scheduled erotic films early in the evening, it was not the public, but TF1 that complained, fearing that its own audience share would drop. With intense competition for advertising, ratings determine revenue. TF1 has cornered 54% of the market. Then come Antenne 2, La 5, FR3 and M6, which along with La 5 is in financial difficulties.
We cannot afford, through the advertising market, for 5 different generalist channels. That is one aspect of the problem. The second aspect of the problem is a cultural aspect and the role of TV in a country. If you use broadcast system, that means that each man or woman can watch the TV free. You cannot stay on a system where you offer to all the viewers exactly the same program. So we need to have specific channel with specific objective to each channel.
The powers of the French Television Authority, the CNCL, are ill-adapted to deal with this kind of problem.
In one hand, it's too strong, in other hand, too weak, and nothing in the middle. So they couldn't do anything. And the best solution for the next institution would be to increase their power in order to control the programming, not the program, but the philosophy of the program of the different channels.
This winter, the CNCL will be replaced by a new authority, the third in as many years, which will have to deal with cable and satellite broadcasting. Both have started slowly in France, but no one doubts it's from the sky that the greatest challenge to broadcasting controls will come.
Even without that challenge at the moment, Christine Ochren, it looks as though you have more channels than is commercially viable. Do you think that all these channels will survive?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that our system is very different from yours. In our system, public TV channels like Channel 2 and Channel 3 rely on commercials, on advertising for most of their income. The channel I work for, Channel 2, relies on advertising for as much as 70%, 70% of its budget. So to complete Philip Short's very good report, I think it should be stressed that the complexity of the French situation is that it's neither meat nor fish. It's not a purely two-world system, you know, one public service and the other commercial. It's all intermingled. And part of the problem with having 6 channels which all compete with general programming is that it makes the another ambiguity as far as resources is concerned. It is quite obvious that there is room, as far as advertising goes, for probably as many as 2 or 3 general viewing programs.
Yeah.
Certainly not 6.
Let me bring in Anthony Munn here. Picking up on Christine's point there, Anthony, although she says the two situations are not comparable, nevertheless, many people foresee that in 8 or 9 years' time here, we could be in the same situation as you are there in France. Now, should we fear it? Is it something to worry about?
I don't think so, really. I think perhaps the point which Christine didn't mention was the fact that the 2 state channels are partly financed through TV license fees. It's interesting to compare that with England, where in fact there's no commercial at all, no commercial advertising on the 2 channels, the BBC One and BBC Two. I wasn't aware that 70% of the revenue of the 2 state companies here was, in fact, commercial.
But basically, you're quite happy with the service that you receive?
The answer to that is yes.
OK, Anthony, let me bring in our first viewer who's phoned in. From London, Mel Jefferson. Hi, Mel.
Hello there.
What's your question? Serious money. 1,200 stations and stripping housewives does sound pretty chaotic, and indeed it was for a while, but it's settled down now, partly because one man has emerged as the leading figure in Italian commercial television, Silvio Berlusconi, who now has 3 networks of his own. So, who is he? Is he the man Robert Maxwell and Rupert Murdoch want to emulate? 3 networks are based on 13 television stations and 1,800 transmitters, and his battle with the public service channels is a constant source of headlines in the Italian press. His 3 channels now have 38% of the audience. RAI, the 3 public service, 46%, leaving only 16% for the others. Now, David Willey lives in Italy and covers Italian affairs for the BBC. We asked him to report on the television scene 10 years after the first impact of deregulation.
During the 70s, Italian viewers had only 2 television channels to choose from. Today, in the cities, there are more than 20 commercial stations competing with RAI, the state TV network. But there are also hundreds of small stations up and down Italy. The chaos on the airwaves initially resembled Italy's road problems, severe congestion followed by a race for survival. In the last few years, the bigger, more successful stations have eaten up the small fry. Milan has become Italy's commercial television capital. The market's ruled by Silvio Berlusconi, who in 10 years has swallowed up all his main rivals and created a TV empire that's watched by almost half the national audience. But independent operators like Italia 7 still survive and rake in profits. Their formula for commercial success is a glossy show like Colpo Grosso, The Big Win, a quiz where the rules of the game make showgirls and contestants strip down to their underwear.
Is there any form of censorship on television for this sort of program? Do you have any control, moral controls?
The control is on the feature film and on the theatrical film. If you refer to Colpo Grosso, I think that only control, the unique control may be the good taste in doing this.
Do you think that, though, the commercial television stations in Italy have any sense of public service broadcasting?
Commercial television, first of all commercial and independent television, have a problem. That is the cover of their costs. And after, they have the opportunity to do information and public service.
Rome is the headquarters of RAI, Italy's state-owned television service, which used to enjoy a nationwide monopoly. Deregulation was never actually decided by the Italian Parliament. A group of enterprising businessmen simply set up local TV stations, and when they were challenged by RAI in the courts, they won. Competition, even at a local level, shook up RAI, and everyone agrees that their programs improved.
RAI needs advertising to top up its license revenue, but its earnings from commercials are strictly regulated.
In
order for RAI to cope with its commitment to public service broadcasting and compete successfully with commercial television, we need financial resources equivalent to those of commercial broadcasting. If this doesn't happen, the mixed system we have in Italy of public and private television is doomed. And sooner or later, we'll revert to a monopoly. But this time, it'll be a monopoly of commercial television.
Advertising at peak viewing times on commercial television can last up to 10 minutes in each hour.
Television viewers in Italy are reacting unfavorably to this bombardment from their television screens with advertising. Outside RAI, there's virtually no control at all over the number of minutes in each hour devoted to commercials. Here in Italy, the advertisers are taking advantage of the lack of regulations.
Now, Nora Muti, I'll put to you an example of the sort of call we're getting in here. Yeah. Ina Zimmerman from Tunbridge Wells has phoned in. She says, Italy has many channels and it's terrible. You find yourself just channel hopping. All sorts of cowboys can broadcast and it's just rubbish. Now, 1,200 stations, it sounds absolutely mind-boggling. Do people set these up in their back gardens or what?
Well, I can't get 1,200 stations on my television, I don't know. The ones I do get, I think the programs are good, they're varied, and I'm very happy with them.
That's good. Now, Paolo, you live in Rome. How many television stations would you have at your disposal?
More than 20. Exactly 24, 25.
And do you find yourself that you just watch 1, 2 or 3, or do you have time to watch all these stations?
No, I'm just interested in 7 or 8 of them, not more.
7 or 8, that's quite a lot. That would do me. Right. Let's